A wealthy CEO encounters four street girls, each 9 years old and strikingly resembling the ex-wife he cast aside a decade earlier. Before we embark on this narrative journey, please leave a comment below and share your location with us. Delight in the tale. The polished black Lincoln Navigator came to a smooth halt at the red light on Fifth Avenue, its darkened windows concealing the occupant from the bustling energy of Manhattan streets. Parker Montgomery eased his Italian silk tie, savoring a fleeting moment of contentment. The Chun merger was finalized, yet another billion-dollar agreement marked by his signature, yet another triumph for Montgomery Enterprises. Mr. Montgomery, should I return to headquarters via the tunnel? His driver inquired, their gaze locking with Parker's through the rearview mirror. No, James, I require some fresh air. Just let me out here. I can finish the journey on foot. The doorman at the plaza acknowledged Parker with a tip of his hat as he walked by, his tall stature exuding an air of authority that resonated even with Manhattan's upper crust. At 52, Parker Montgomery's presence had only intensified with age, silver weaving gracefully through his dark hair, while stress lines etched around eyes reminiscent of Arctic ice. The November air held the first hint of winter's chill, yet Parker remained oblivious. His thoughts surged with visions of future endeavors, strategic gains, and the next pinnacle of success to achieve. A decade of unwavering dedication had elevated Montgomery Enterprises from a thriving family operation to an international powerhouse. A decade filled with relentless 16-hour days and countless sleepless nights. A decade of hollowness masquerading as achievement. The crosswalk signal shifted, and Parker stepped ahead with the throng, glancing at his watch. Just 40 minutes until the board meeting. It was at that moment he caught sight of them. Four identical little girls gathered closely on the street corner, meticulously arranging their handmade bouquets in plastic buckets. They donned an array of mismatched winter coats, each one bearing the marks of a previous life, and wore fingerless gloves that left their small hands vulnerable to the biting chill. A cardboard sign leaned against one bucket, announcing, "Flowers for Hope, $5. Parker might have strolled by, might have brushed them off like he did with all the street vendors, yet something about them piqued his interest. There was an elegance in the subtle curve of their jaws, a dignified lift of their chins that stood in stark contrast to their evident hardship. Suddenly, as if aware of his stare, one of the girls lifted her eyes to meet his gaze. Parker ceased to breathe. The bustling world around him, honking taxis, chattering pedestrians, and the rumbling subway beneath his feet, faded into a profound silence. Those captivating eyes. Victoria's gaze met his, framed by the innocence of a face that appeared to be 9, perhaps 10 years old. More than a single visage. For matching surfaces. For siblings born at once. The young one who had captured his attention gently prodded her sibling, murmuring a secret. Before long, all four girls were gazing at him with the same look of intrigue. Their gaze, those eyes of his, a striking blue that had adorned Montgomery faces for generations. Parker's phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. He searched for it, letting his briefcase slip from his grasp. "Mr. Montgomery, the board is inquiring about any potential delays on your part." The voice of his assistant came through as thin and far away. I'll return your call shortly." He succeeded, finishing the call while keeping his gaze fixed on the girls. One of them, the one who had first noticed him, stepped forward, a delicate bouquet held out in her hand. "Would you be interested in purchasing some flowers, sir? They cost just $5. Her voice broke something within Parker, carrying the same melodic rhythm as Victoria's, yet lighter, more youthful, and pure. "Can you tell me about yourself?" he murmured, the inquiry slipping out before he could rein it in. The girl appeared perplexed, pulling the flower back a bit. "My name is Emma. Allow me to introduce my sisters. Lily, Sophie, and Zoe. We are the Flower Girls." She smiled, showcasing a gap where her front tooth once was. "Tooth, that's what everyone refers to us as." "Emma." Parker echoed the name, strange yet undeniably important. A horn sounded in the vicinity, shattering the peculiar enchantment. The tiniest of the four girls, Zoe, he mused, pulled insistently at Emma's sleeve. We need to leave, Emma remarked, or Ruth will start to fret. Before Parker could say anything, the girls were hurriedly filling their buckets with a sense of urgency, collecting their unsold bouquets. In under a minute, they vanished into the throng of pedestrians, leaving Parker solitary, his neglected briefcase resting at his feet. A decade. It had been a decade since he had cast Victoria aside. It had been a decade since she had emotionally proclaimed that the pregnancy was both miraculous and genuine. It had been a decade since he had dismissed the doctor's claims of impossibility, that he, Parker Montgomery, who had been deemed sterile since his college days, could actually father a child, much less four identical daughters bearing Victoria's features and Montgomery's striking eyes. Parker grasped his briefcase with a quivering hand, as if the very fabric of his reality was shifting beneath him. The board meeting, the chanto, the merger, the empire he had constructed. Suddenly, none of it held any significance. He needed to find out. He needed to seek them out once more. The grandfather clock in Parker's penthouse struck midnight, its deep tones echoing through the vacant room. He lingered by the expansive windows, the dazzling skyline of Manhattan unfolding before him, a glass of scotch remaining idle in his grasp. That moment on the street corner kept echoing in his mind. For matching surfaces, for sets of Montgomery, azure orbs. Unthinkable, he murmured to the image staring back at him. Still, he couldn't dismiss the likeness. Parker placed his glass on the table and made his way to his home office. He pulled out a leather-bound box from the bottom drawer of his desk, one that had remained untouched for years. Within were the echoes of his existence alongside Victoria. Snapshots, notes, little keepsakes from their 5 years together. Their wedding photo gazed back at him. Victoria, glowing in white, her chestnut locks flowing gracefully over her shoulders, green eyes shimmering with delight. Next to her, a younger Parker beamed with authentic joy, a feeling his face had long since lost touch with. He recalled their final evening together with excruciating detail. Victoria stood in this very room, her hands gently cradling her still flat stomach, tears streaming down her face. "It's truly astonishing, Parker," she had asserted. "The physicians were mistaken. These are our precious little ones." His reply was icy, methodical. "Every expert has affirmed that I am unable to have children. So whose miracle is it? Are you taking care of Victoria?" The pain reflected in her gaze was overwhelming, yet his pride refused to allow him to acknowledge the truth. The Montgomery name held immense significance. Centuries of influence, grandeur, inherited wealth. The idea of another man's offspring carrying that name was intolerable. His phone rang amidst their heated exchange. Ellen or his sister reaching out with pressing matters. Parker recalled the way Victoria's face had set into a steely mask at the disruption. Victoria had whispered, "Your sister always comes between us. She has never had the desire for this marriage to succeed. Do not hold Eleanor responsible for your mistake," he retorted sharply. The following morning, Victoria had vanished, her wedding ring resting on the bedside table. Silence reigns, devoid of words or reasons, merely emptiness. Parker's fingers glided over the gold band, nestled within the box. He had persuaded himself of his own righteousness, believing that Victoria had turned against him. Eleanor had gradually strengthened his conviction, initially in subtle ways, and then more overtly as the weeks went by. Eleanor had firmly claimed that her intentions were solely driven by the allure of the Montgomery fortune. "I cautioned you right from the start." Parker let out a deep breath, placing the photos back into their box. Was he a pawn in someone else's game? Was Victoria being honest? The notion of quadruplets appeared statistically unlikely as a facade for unfaithfulness. He picked up his phone, calling his head of security. "Jenkins, I require your assistance in locating an individual. For young girls around the age of 9. For identical siblings." He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "And find Victoria Bennett, my former spouse." After hanging up, Parker gazed at the Manhattan skyline, the empire he had constructed in Victoria's absence, now appearing empty and devoid of meaning. On the morrow, he would find himself back at that street corner, poised and ready to wait. He sought the truth, regardless of the chaos it might unleash. He reflected on the final decade of his life. Parker reached the intersection of 5th and 53rd by 7 the following morning, the lingering shadow of yesterday's encounter trailing behind him. He had traded his customary tailored suit for jeans, a simple sweater, and a baseball cap, a disguise that felt unfamiliar on his form. The corner stayed vacant. There are no flower buckets, nor are there little girls with haunting blue eyes. He sat there for 3 hours, dismissing the calls from his workplace. By noon, a heavy sense of disappointment had woven itself into his very being. Maybe yesterday was just an exception. The girls may choose to sell in different locations or exclusively during the weekends. As he was about to depart, a sudden flicker of motion drew his attention. On the other side of the street, navigating through the throng, were 4 tiny silhouettes clad in an array of mismatched coats. He felt a wave of relief, quickly followed by a surge of anxiety. The girls assembled their improvised stand with a deft touch, carefully positioning simple bouquets of carnations and daisies. Parker observed from behind a newspaper, taking note of how the one named Emma guided her sisters with a soft yet commanding presence. A hurried businessman brushed by, inadvertently toppling one of their buckets. Water cascaded over the sidewalk, drenching a number of bouquets. The man continued on his path, unwavering. Parker felt the urge to step in, yet an invisible force restrained him. He observed the tiniest girl, Zoe, as she battled, suppressing tears as Sophie enveloped her in a comforting embrace. Lily and Emma hurriedly gathered the flowers they could save. Their determination was remarkable. With a calm resolve and unwavering focus, they came together once more, leaving behind any signs of frustration. As the clock struck 2 and foot traffic dwindled, the girls gathered their remaining flowers with a sense of resolve. This was his moment. Parker trailed behind, maintaining a distance that allowed them to catch glimpses of the vibrant hats ahead. They guided him, away from Manhattan's shining skyscrapers, through areas becoming increasingly humble. In Chelsea, they paused at a quaint little deli. Parker observed Emma through the window as she meticulously counted crumpled bills, preparing to buy a single sandwich that they would share, dividing it into 4 equal portions. The vision contorted a part of his being. His daughters, assuming they were indeed his daughters, sharing a single sandwich while he indulged in meals at Michelin-starred establishments. Their journey led them to a dilapidated part of the Lower East Side, culminating at an aged building adorned with a worn sign, Hope Harbor. A figure lingered across the street, eyes fixed on the girls as they vanished into the women and children's shelter. Parker. The shelter appeared tidy yet profoundly lacking in resources. Flaking paint, shattered windows mended with tape, security bars corroded by time. Victoria residing in a homeless shelter? The idea was unfathomable. She hailed from a respectable family, not affluent like the Montgomerys, but certainly at ease. How had she descended to such depths? A silver-haired woman stood in the doorway, welcoming the girls with affectionate embraces. She received something from them, the earnings from their sales. Parker understood. The woman's face lit up with pride before they all vanished inside. Parker's phone buzzed with a sudden vibration. Jenkins. Sir, I possess initial details regarding Victoria Bennett. Go ahead, Parker said, his gaze unwavering on the shelter door. Sir, she is currently in custody. Rikers Island. A 6-month sentence for petty theft commenced 4 months ago. The ground shifted unsettlingly under Parker's feet. Is Victoria behind bars? The Victoria he remembered would never take a paperclip. The children are currently under the temporary care of Ruth Abernathy, a former social worker. They are located at Hope Harbor Shelter, Parker concluded. I understand. With a firm resolve, Parker strode across the street, each step deliberate and confident. He had forsaken these children once out of ignorance. He would never leave them behind once more. We constantly seek volunteers, Ms. Abernathy remarked, casting a doubtful glance at Parker. In the shelter's cramped office, he sensed a striking sense of being out of place, even in his casual attire, particularly men. Many of our children lack positive male figures in their lives. Parker nodded, keeping his facade intact. I recently sold my tech startup and am now seeking ways to contribute while contemplating my next chapter. So, Mr. Parker? She hesitated, contemplating the alias he had provided. Hope Harbor may not be glamorous, but we could really use assistance with meals, maintenance, and tutoring. Are you still interested? Certainly. His eyes wandered over a vibrant display of children's creations. Within the collection, there are 4 identical illustrations of flower bouquets, each bearing a distinct signature. Emma, Lily, Sophie, Zoe. Ruth turned her attention to where he was looking. The 4 siblings? They are remarkable individuals. Her demeanor became gentler. Her mother stood out as a remarkable success story among us. Up until now, what transpired? Parker inquired, taking care to appear simply inquisitive instead of frantic. Ruth let out a deep breath. Victoria juggled 3 jobs to ensure their survival. When the pandemic struck, she found herself with nothing left. They faced eviction. She gently shook her head. Before the girls came into the world, Victoria had honed her skills as a florist. She guided them in the art of bouquet arrangement, and soon they began selling their creations on street corners. Parker felt a constriction in his throat. What comes next? She is currently incarcerated for taking food from a grocery store. Ruth's voice took on a steely edge. The judge set a precedent with her case. Half a year for stealing bread and peanut butter. The girls will remain here as I seek temporary guardianship. Parker was taken aback by the sheer casualness of the cruelty. Victoria confined for nourishing her daughters while he indulged in extravagant opulence. The girls are truly exceptional, Ruth went on. They gather their funds for essential needs. Emma manages their financial matters. She's 9, but she carries herself with the wisdom of someone much older. Lily crafts the arrangements. Sophie safeguards them on the streets, along with Zoe. Her voice wavered just a bit. Zoe maintains their optimism. It serves as a reminder that their mother will come back. Do they sell flowers by themselves? Is that not perilous? They are left with no options. I'm unable to leave the shelter, and they rely on the income. Ruth's gaze was defiant. If you're truly committed to volunteering, you might consider joining them on occasion. Parker nodded, attempting to absorb all the information. Is there any assistance from their father? Ruth's demeanor shifted to one of shadow and intensity. Victoria rarely mentions him, only stating that he refused to acknowledge them as his. A wealthy man, unable to come to terms with the fact that his medical diagnosis was incorrect. She examined Parker's expression. The girls possess his eyes, however. The unique shade of blue. Parker sensed vulnerability. Clear. He shifted the topic. When is the starting point? The dinner shift begins in 20 minutes. The girls assist with serving. Ruth rose to her feet. Consider this a heads up. They harbor doubts about newcomers to adulthood. They've faced disappointment far too frequently. As Parker strolled through the shelter's common area, he took in the stark truth of his children's living conditions. The establishment was tidy yet severely packed beyond capacity. 30 women and children utilizing 4 bathrooms, resting in shared accommodations that lack personal space. At the threshold of the kitchen, he came to an abrupt halt. The quadruplets lined up, donned in matching aprons crafted from adult-sized ones, diligently ladling soup into bowls. It was Emma who first caught sight of him, her gaze lingering. His eyes narrowed with suspicion. Ruth has called. Ladies, allow me to introduce Mr. Parker. He's lending his time to us for a bit. 4 identical faces regarded him with a caution that no child ought to have. These were not children without worries. They had endured, shaped by the demands of their circumstances. Parker smiled, battling the surge of emotion that sought to engulf him. Hello, he said plainly. I am eager to lend a hand. Are you familiar with flowers? Lily inquired out of the blue. Parker gave a slight shake of his head. Not exactly, but I'm eager to gain knowledge. Sophie, ever the guardian, positioned herself just ahead of her. Siblings. Tomorrow you will be able to handle the heavy buckets. Mr. Parker, that's not quite right. Lily let out a soft sigh, her delicate fingers rearranging the carnation stems he had placed in the bucket. They require air. Similar to this. 3 weeks into his volunteer work, Parker sat cross-legged on the shelter's floor, enveloped by a vibrant array of flowers and 4 little girls who were becoming increasingly familiar to him. What had started as a quest to verify their identity had transformed into something far more intricate. My apologies, he said, truly remorseful. I was completely unaware that flowers followed certain rules. Everything has rules, Emma said with a straightforward tone, as she counted the dollar bills from yesterday's sales. All you need to do is grasp them. Parker observed as her delicate fingers expertly separated the crumpled ones from the fives with a skillful ease. It's concerning that a child of 9 has such a deep understanding of financial obligations. $7 short, she whispered, going over the figures again. We require a minimum of 40 for Mom's commissary account. The offhand reference to Victoria's imprisonment still unsettled him. He had discovered that the girls made their visits weekly, with Ruth joining them on the arduous trek to Rikers Island. He proposed that sales might improve today. Today is Saturday. Zoe, the most reserved of the 4, unexpectedly brushed against his sleeve. Are you truly going to join us today? From dawn till dusk? Her fragile hope cut through him. He made promises all day long. I'm here to take on whatever you require. Ruth watched their exchange from the doorway, her initial doubts slowly beginning to fade. Ladies, wrap it up. Breakfast will be ready in 10 minutes. Parker made his way over to Ruth as they gathered their supplies. What accounts for their stark differences? He inquired softly. I imagined what it would be like to have identical quadruplets. More the same? Ruth beamed. In terms of physicality, certainly. However, Victoria notes that their personalities were unique from the very beginning. Her expression deepened into contemplation. She chose their names with intention. Emma embodies strength, Sophia represents wisdom, Lily signifies beauty, and Zoe symbolizes life. Parker took this in. Victoria had chosen significant names for their daughters, while he remained unaware of their presence. Victoria put in so much effort, Ruth continued. Juggling triple shifts at the hospital as a receptionist, attending night classes in design, and consistently setting aside resources for their education. She gave a slight shake of her head. Everything changed with COVID. I found myself without a job, without a place to live, and without any savings. And no support, Parker added, the taste of self-recrimination sharp and bitter on his tongue. Ruth observed him intently. It appears you have a genuine interest in their narrative. He redirected the conversation, emphasizing that the plight of children in need is a shared responsibility. In the familiar nook, Parker took his post as the watchful guardian, while the girls meticulously crafted their simple bouquets. Business flowed smoothly. Their genuine excitement and matching features rendered them unforgettable. Parker observed Emma managing transactions with ease, while Sophie kept a vigilant eye for any potential issues. Lily effortlessly crafted arrangements on the fly, and Zoe captivated customers with her endearing, shy smile. In a moment of quiet, Sophie made her way toward him, her suspicion evident as ever. What is it that makes you gaze at us in such a way? Parker was taken aback. What do you mean? As if you're attempting to commit our faces to memory, she remarked, her hands on her hips in a small act of rebellion. Before he could gather his thoughts, a woman let her bouquet slip from her grasp, sending petals tumbling onto the sidewalk. Parker knelt to assist her, and as he raised his gaze, he found Sophie looking at him with an unexpected fervor. Your eyes, she said slowly, they are identical to ours. Parker stood still, heart racing. Zoe emerged next to her sister. Just like those photos of Mom's partner, she murmured, the treasures she holds, tucked away in her cherished box. Emma listened in, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. Who are you at your core, Mr. Parker? The moment he had both looked forward to and feared had come upon him more quickly than he had imagined. For pairs of identical blue eyes, his own, gazed at him, insisting on honesty. He was not ready to offer anything. I'm merely a person seeking to assist, he conveyed, the insufficiency of his reply lingering in the air between them. Lily, finishing the circle, observed him with a keen eye for detail. Your expression reveals a hint of sorrow when you believe we're not observing. At times, he confessed, when I reflect on all that you've endured. The girls shared knowing looks, conveying a silent understanding that only those who are part of a set can truly grasp. Mom feels sad as well, Zoe said softly. Yet she feigns indifference, all for our sake. Parker felt a constriction in his chest. She appears quite courageous. Indeed, Emma affirmed, the bravest. Suddenly, she extended a delicate daisy. This one is complimentary, as a gesture of goodwill towards us. Parker received the modest flower, recognizing that it symbolized much more than its unassuming look implied. It was the initial, delicate thread of trust. 6 weeks had changed Parker Montgomery in ways no corporate gathering ever could. The individual who previously defined achievement through financial reports now gauged it by the tiny grins of the quadruplets. His elegant Italian leather shoes were swapped out for more functional boots. His timetable shaped not by business deals but by the rhythm of flower sales and the timing of shelter meals. Mr. Montgomery, the investors from Tokyo have reached out 3 times. The voice of his assistant resonated in his earpiece while he assisted the girls in loading their buckets into Ruth's old station wagon. Parker replied, "Let them know I'll call tomorrow," as he squeezed the final container into the trunk. "Sir, this marks the 4th occurrence of tomorrow this month. The board is worried about your lack of presence." Parker observed Emma tenderly rearranging Zoe's scarf with a nurturing touch. "There are matters of greater significance, Diane. Take care of it." He severed the connection before she had a chance to reply, pivoting to see Ruth observing him intently with her sharp eyes. She commented that your work must be quite insightful. Parker upheld his cover story by granting you this much volunteer time. The perks of being in charge, Ruth nodded, though her skepticism lingered. The girls have developed a fondness for you, particularly Zoe. It was indeed true. The tiniest of the group had started to search for him, revealing hidden gems. Among the girls' scant belongings lay a blue marble that mirrored their eyes, a pressed flower from Victoria's final visit, and a worn book of fairy tales adorned with their mother's handwriting. "They're remarkable kids," Parker remarked, his voice laden with emotion. Indeed, Ruth consented. In the face of adversity, Victoria nurtured them with unwavering love and resilience. The mention of Victoria stirred a familiar sense of guilt within him. By asking thoughtful questions, he uncovered deeper insights into her decline. How she had managed to keep a modest apartment until the pandemic took away all her jobs at once. How she had extended her savings until there was nothing left. How she had ultimately resorted to extreme actions when confronted with 4 starving children. Later that evening in his penthouse, Parker meticulously examined the file his investigator had assembled regarding Victoria's case. The incident involved a small-scale theft, with food items valued at under $70. Nevertheless, the judge delivered the harshest sentence possible, emphasizing the necessity to deter such actions in challenging circumstances. Parker felt a surge of anger rising within him. Victoria Montgomery at this moment. Bennett received a severe sentence for the crime of stealing bread, while the affluent in Manhattan hoarded supplies in their vacation residences. The sound of his phone pierced the silence. Eleanor, his sibling. "Parker, my dear, I've returned from Paris," she cooed. "What is this absurdity Diane is saying about you skipping meetings? It doesn't seem to fit your character." Parker paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. He had kept the news of the quadruplets from Eleanor. Something restrained him. Maybe it was the recollection of her disdain for Victoria, or the sense of fulfillment she felt when the union dissolved. He responded thoughtfully, seeking clarity. The Chun merger was quite draining. "Well, just shake it off," Eleanor responded with a lively tone. "The Nakamura Group is primed for takeover. I have scheduled dinner with their CFO for tomorrow." Parker's mind raced back to his commitment to join the girls at the community center's art program. "I won't be able to tomorrow." "Unable to?" His sister's voice became more cutting. "Parker, what's happening with you?" "I'll clarify shortly," he remarked, hesitant to provide further details. Sweet dreams, Eleanor. Once the call ended, Parker faced his computer, fingers poised to type a search he had been reluctant to confront. Paternity DNA testing procedures. The results emerged immediately, precise and unambiguous. A straightforward cheek swab might validate what his heart had long suspected. However, acquiring samples from the girls would necessitate justifications he wasn't prepared to provide. On his dining table rested the architectural plans for the renovation of Hope Harbor, a charitable foundation project he had quietly set in motion. Beside them lay a folder filled with the legal strategy his team was crafting to contest Victoria's sentence. Parker gazed intently at his reflection in the shadowy window. The figure glancing over his shoulder bore no resemblance to the merciless executive from just 2 months prior. A gap with a gentler gaze had his priorities profoundly transformed. He lifted the girl's latest masterpiece, a bouquet they had urged him to bring home, now showcased in an elegant vase that seemed out of place with the simple daisies within. Parker brushed against a fragile petal, astonished by how these 4 tiny beings had penetrated the walls he had constructed around his heart, unraveling 10 years of cultivated apathy. Tomorrow he would be absent from yet another meeting. He would fulfill his promise tomorrow. The Empire was patient. The art instructor announced, "Draw your family," as they handed out paper to the weekend class at the community center. Parker observed from his corner as the quadruplets shared knowing looks before reaching for their crayons. As other children sketched typical stick figure families complete with houses and pets, Parker observed the girls engaging with an extraordinary focus. Emma, always resourceful, crafted tidy diagrams complete with annotations. Lily intricately wove together vivid descriptions of attire and hairstyles. Sophie's artwork featured encircling lines that shielded her family members. Zoe infused the scene with enchanting flowers blossoming all around. When the instructor called for volunteers to share insights about their artwork, Zoe unexpectedly lifted her hand. "This is our family," she remarked, gesturing towards 5 women standing together. "My sisters, our mom and I. Though she may not be present at the moment, she remains a cherished part of our family." The void in their family portraits, the intentional gap where a father ought to stand, hit Parker with a palpable weight. He had never contemplated how his refusal had influenced their perception of family. "Is Mr. Parker in your drawing?" Another child inquired with genuine curiosity. Zoe glanced at Parker before returning her gaze to the picture. "No, but perhaps next time." Moments. That evening, as Parker assisted Ruth in preparing dinner at the shelter, he found himself collaborating with Emma, whose inquisitive nature relentlessly probed every detail. "Mr. Parker, do you have children?" she inquired abruptly, her movements precise as she stirred the pasta sauce, the question he had been anticipating with unease. "No," he responded with a mix of honesty and deception. "I do not." "Why not indeed?" Parker took a moment to weigh his response, acknowledging the compliment about his rapport with children. "At times, life unfolds in unexpected ways," Emma acknowledged with a thoughtful nod. "My mother agrees with that as well. She suggests that occasionally, life presents you with unexpected treasures instead of the ones you sought." Parker responded, his voice thick with emotion. "Your mother seems incredibly wise." "Indeed," Emma affirmed. "She mentions that we share our father's eyes." Parker almost let the plate slip from his grasp. "Does she frequently mention him?" "No," Emma replied, "though it brings her sorrow. She cherishes his picture in her treasured box." As the evening unfolded and the girls got ready for sleep, Sophie walked up to Parker with a surprising boldness. "What is it about your appearance that resembles ours?" "What do you mean?" he inquired, his heart racing. "Those captivating eyes of yours. Your chin is quite striking." She examined him with a discerning eye. "Lily mentioned that your hands resemble mine as well." Parker looked down at his elongated fingers, strikingly akin to the girl's fragile ones. "It's not uncommon for people to bear a resemblance to one another, Sophie. It simply occurs." She remained skeptical. "Tomorrow is the day for Mom's visit. Ruth mentioned that your presence isn't possible since you're not considered family." Her stare deepened. "Yet you resemble kin." The tone in her voice, whether it was an accusation or a form of recognition, rendered him utterly speechless. Once the girls were tucked in for the night, Parker slipped away to Ruth's office, seemingly to assist with the paperwork. In truth, he was mustering his bravery. "Ruth," he started with a measured pace. "What if I could assist Victoria in a lawful manner? I possess a network of relationships." Ruth's gaze snapped upward. What sort of relationships might Mr. Parker possess? Her focus on his pseudonym validated her doubts. Parker inhaled deeply. "My name is not merely Parker. It is Parker Montgomery." A glimmer of understanding lit up her gaze. "Montgomery? Could you clarify what you mean?" He confirmed that he is Victoria's ex-husband. "Who is the father of the girl?" Ruth's expression grew steely. "The man who cast her aside, leaving her pregnant and without resources? Who remained silent to her letters, her cries for assistance." "Excuse me? Correspondence?" Parker inquired, a look of true bewilderment on his face. There was no communication from Victoria after her departure. Ruth's doubt was unmistakable. What makes you trustworthy? What prompts a return after nearly a decade of quiet? Parker possessed no satisfactory response, merely the unvarnished truth. "I was unaware of their existence until I spotted them peddling flowers. I had no idea that Victoria was being honest about the pregnancy. What comes next? I am eager to assist. I need to help," Parker uttered, his voice trembling. "They belong to my daughters." Ruth observed him closely, balancing nearly a decade of Victoria's hardships against his seemingly genuine demeanor. Yesterday, Victoria's request for early release was denied. She finally remarked, "If you genuinely wish to assist, begin at that point. However, grasp this concept. The girls have endured the absence of their father for 9 long years. Do not disrupt the fragile balance they possess unless you intend to remain for the long haul." Her caution was unmistakable. Only through actions, not remorse, could he find his salvation. Eleanor Montgomery's heels echoed sharply on the marble floor of Parker's penthouse, each step emphasizing her rising irritation. 3 canceled dinners, 5 missed board meetings, and countless unanswered messages had tested her patience to the brink. Eleanor sensed that something was amiss with her brother, and she was resolute in her quest to uncover the truth behind it, whether it be a person or a circumstance at fault. In the lobby, she called out to Parker's longtime driver, James. "Where has my brother been vanishing to these past weeks?" The devoted employee paused thoughtfully. "I'm afraid I can't provide an answer, Ms. Montgomery. These days, Mr. Montgomery frequently overlooks my presence." Eleanor's flawlessly shaped eyebrow arched elegantly. "Disregards you? Where to go?" "Typically the Lower East Side. I let him out close to Hope Harbor." "What about the shelter for those without homes?" Eleanor's voice oozed with disdain. What could Parker possibly be doing there? James understood it was wiser to keep things brief. "You might want to consider asking him directly, ma'am." "Oh, I plan to," she whispered, her mind already crafting a strategy. The following afternoon, Eleanor's sleek black Bentley sat idling just half a block away from Hope Harbor. She observed through the shaded glass as Parker stepped out of the building, flanked by 4 identical little girls and an older woman. Her brother, the man who frequented charity galas solely for the sake of networking, was holding plastic buckets brimming with flowers, chuckling at something one of the children had remarked. "Keep them in sight," Eleanor directed her driver. She watched in increasing astonishment as Parker assisted the girls in arranging a makeshift flower stand on a bustling corner. The scene was so at odds with the sibling she recognized that Eleanor nearly voiced her doubts. Her very own gaze. Then one of the girls turned, and Eleanor felt a chill run through her veins. Those captivating eyes. The unique shade of Montgomery blue. The identical hue that had adorned the family portraits for countless generations. Even more troubling, the child's profile, along with all the others, strikingly mirrored Victoria, the woman Eleanor had tirelessly endeavored to eliminate from their lives 10 years prior. "No," she murmured, "utterly inconceivable." Eleanor's thoughts whirled with numbers and equations. The girls seemed to be approximately 9 years of age. Victoria asserted her pregnancy right before Parker exiled her. The timing was impeccable. Parker had always embraced the medical diagnosis of sterility without a hint of doubt. Eleanor had taken every precaution, even going so far as to befriend his doctor's assistant to guarantee the report stayed conclusive. It had been crucial to her strategy. Victoria's surprising pregnancy revelation created the ideal chance for Eleanor to end the marriage she had always resisted. Victoria Bennett, once known as Montgomery, had posed a significant danger. Excessively insightful, excessively resolute, and too eager to confront Eleanor's sway over her brother and the family's wealth. Eleanor swiftly identified the peril and responded with precision, nurturing Parker's uncertainties and fostering his mistrust. As she observed her brother gently fixing a little girl's coat collar, Eleanor sensed the delicate facade of her carefully built world starting to fall apart. As Parker stepped into his penthouse that evening, he found Eleanor poised with a glass of Bordeaux, her expression a careful mask of calm, concealing the tension simmering beneath the surface. "Ellie," Parker began, clearly taken aback. "What was your method of entry?" "I still possess a key, my dear. Familial advantage." She took a delicate sip of her wine. "I'm starting to question whether the essence of family has slipped your mind." Parker's stance became rigid. "Excuse me? What are you referring to? Please refrain from underestimating my understanding." Eleanor placed her glass on the table. "Today I caught a glimpse of you with those children, the offspring of Victoria." Her gaze sharpened. "Kids who bear a striking resemblance to you." Parker's face went pale. "You decided to follow me? It seems that someone must uncover what has been capturing your focus as our company struggles to stay afloat." Eleanor moved in closer. "Is that the reason you've been overlooking all that you've created? Perhaps a misdirected sense of paternal enlightenment?" "Those are my daughters, Ellie." Parker's voice carried a soft yet resolute quality. "For siblings born at once." Victoria spoke honestly. "Do you really think that's true?" Eleanor let out a derisive laugh. "After everything that's happened, you're letting her pull you back into her web of deceit once more?" "I have encountered them and engaged in conversation with them." Parker's gaze turned steely. "They possess my gaze, my emotions." Even without prior knowledge of Victoria's character, the similarity is unmistakable. Eleanor fought to keep her poise. "Even if these girls are in some way connected to you, which I still question, why choose to engage at this moment?" Victoria decided her path the moment she walked away. "When I pushed her out," Parker clarified. "Expecting and solitary. Grounded in medical information that was evidently inaccurate. And now I find out she's incarcerated for taking food to nourish our children." Incarceration? Eleanor was taken aback, but she swiftly concealed her astonishment. How handy. A masterful display of empathy. Parker's demeanor shifted to one of shadow and intensity. "Victoria's pain isn't a performance, Eleanor. She is currently facing a 6-month sentence for a minor theft, while our daughters are residing in a shelter. And of course, you're hurrying to save the day," Eleanor remarked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Have you thought about the controversy? What impact will this have on Montgomery? Organizations? What about your credibility?" "At this moment, none of that matters to me." Eleanor was more horrified by that statement than by anything else he had uttered. Parker Montgomery, detached from the family legacy. Inconceivable. "You need time to think clearly," she said, adjusting her tone with care. "Your emotional revelations have obscured your clarity of thought. Take a moment to pause. I will take care of this situation. Manage it?" Parker's voice took on a menacing edge. "Could you clarify what that means?" "Ellie? Guardianship, beloved sibling. To you. In honor of the Montgomery legacy." She extended her hand toward her purse. "Such circumstances can be addressed with subtlety. Financial arrangements have been finalized." Parker stated decisively that no arrangements would be made. "These are my little ones. Not an issue to be addressed." Eleanor observed her brother, noting the determination etched on his face. "This would necessitate a more nuanced approach." "It seems you've come to a decision," she admitted untruthfully. "Just assure me that you'll move forward with caution." confirm paternity through official channels before committing to any irreversible choices. Parker nodded, a look of relief washing over him at her seemingly warm acceptance. I am actively working towards securing Victoria's early release. Certainly, Eleanor whispered, her mind racing with strategies for what to do next. Prioritizing family is essential, after all. Following a brief goodbye, Eleanor left, promptly dialing her most trusted private investigator from the elevator. I require all information on Victoria Bennett, she commanded. Concentrate on prison correspondence, financial circumstances, and any indications of a plan to take advantage of a wealthy former spouse, and accelerate the process. Time is of the essence. Eleanor Montgomery had previously removed Victoria from the equation. She was determined to make it happen once more, this time with lasting effect, no matter what obstacles or individuals might oppose her. The refined offices of Hemsworth and Associates graced the 47th floor of a modern Manhattan high-rise, a stark contrast to Hope Harbor's worn paint and second-hand furnishings. Parker sat opposite Alexandra Hemsworth, a powerhouse attorney from New York, observing her as she meticulously examined Victoria's case file. Honestly, Mr. Montgomery, this punishment seems excessively severe for someone with no prior offenses, Alexandra remarked, taking off her reading glasses. 6 months for stealing essential items, while most comparable cases typically result in community service. Is it possible to secure her early release? Parker inquired, leaning in closer. Alexandra tapped her pen with a contemplative air. The judge presiding over her case, Philip Crawford, is known for his stern approach towards those he deems pandemic opportunists. Yet, even for him, this is beyond the norm. What are you holding back? Parker insisted. There seems to be a lack of focus. She perused the documents once more. Was there any previous connection between your ex-wife and Judge Crawford? Parker gave a slight shake of his head. I'm not aware of anything like that. Moreover, the rejection of her recent, early release hearing was quite unusual. Her conduct is exemplary, with no previous offenses, and she has children who rely on her. Alexandra's gaze sharpened. Someone desired her to fulfill each day of this sentence. The suggestion lingered in the atmosphere. Parker's thoughts instantly drifted to Eleanor, yet he swiftly dismissed the notion. His sister had a knack for manipulation, yet meddling with the justice system felt like a step too far, even for her. I require you to investigate all possibilities, Parker stated with conviction. Cost is irrelevant. Alexandra gave a slight nod. My team will be dedicated to working tirelessly. In the meantime, I recommend that you establish a more official connection with the children. Should we manage to secure Victoria's release, questions regarding custody will undoubtedly emerge. Parker had been sidestepping this next step, fully aware that it would alter everything beyond repair. I will require paternity. Experimenting. I can organize private lab testing, Alexandra suggested. However, you will require permission from either Victoria or their present guardian. Parker reflected on Ruth, her unwavering defense of the girls. I'll take care of that aspect on my own. Later that afternoon, Parker found himself seated in the office of Dr. Lawrence Whitman, the fertility expert who had determined his sterility more than 10 years prior. Mr. Montgomery. Dr. Whitman welcomed him with a hint of apprehension. This comes as a surprise. My receptionist mentioned it was pressing. I seek clarity on a matter, Doctor. Parker stood tall, leveraging his height to its fullest potential. A decade ago, you claimed I would never be able to have children. Your stance was remarkably clear. Whitman squirmed in his seat. Medicine is not always precise. For children, physician. Parker. Disrupted. For identical siblings. Clarify how your imprecise approach overlooked that potential outcome. The physician's complexion drained of color. For at once? That seems highly unlikely given your situation. Not unlikely. You claimed it couldn't be done. Parker inched forward. I require access to my full medical records, including all tests and their results. I will need to review our records. Whitman was cautious. Now, physician, or my next appointment will involve my legal representatives. 20 minutes later, Parker examined the original laboratory reports, juxtaposing them with the summary he had received years prior. The difference was slight yet unmistakable. His condition suggested a significant decline in fertility, rather than the complete sterility that Whitman had declared. What accounts for the distortion? Parker insisted. Whitman brushed the sweat from his brow. Your sister, Ms. Eleanor Montgomery, has requested a consultation regarding your results, proposing that a clearer diagnosis would be more compassionate and less uncertain. A chilling awareness enveloped Parker. My sister requested that you alter my diagnosis? Whitman subtly retracted his stance. She simply voiced her worries about raising your expectations unrealistically. You mentioned that you and your wife were facing challenges, and that the uncertainty could be harsh. Parker managed to rein in his escalating frustration. So, you changed your medical opinion because of my sister's worry? I simply highlighted the most probable result, Whitman asserted faintly. The likelihood of conception was, in fact, remarkably minimal. So low that when my wife announced she was pregnant with quadruplets, I wrongly accused her of cheating and kicked her out. Parker's voice held a menacing calm. So little that 4 children have endured hardship while I remained unaware. The physician offered no reply. As Parker exited the medical building, his phone began to ring. Jenkins, in the role of security chief. Sir, the background check on Ruth Abernathy has been finalized. She is genuine. 3 decades dedicated to social work prior to retirement. Impeccable history. Highly regarded. What about the financial situation of the shelter? Jenkins responded with a critical tone. They've relied on contributions, yet property taxes are considerably past due. Legal actions for eviction are now underway. Parker swiftly reached a conclusion. Acquire the property via a shell corporation. Eliminate the tax obligation. However, it is essential to uphold confidentiality. I prefer to keep my name out of this for now. Got it, sir. There's an additional element to consider. Jenkins paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Ms. Eleanor's private investigator has been conducting inquiries regarding Victoria Bennett and the children, seeking to obtain restricted juvenile records, correspondence from correctional facilities, and financial statements. Parker's fingers clenched around his phone. His sister was progressing more swiftly than expected. Keep at it. I desire to learn all that she uncovers. Jenkins, make it a priority to keep an eye on the communications between Victoria and anyone beyond the prison walls, especially if Eleanor is getting involved. I'm already working on it, sir. Unconventional patterns have been observed in Ms. Bennett's mail delivery. A number of letters intended for the children experienced considerable delays or seemed to have gone missing altogether. The elements were aligning with unsettling precision. Parker hung up the phone and proceeded to call Ruth. We need to talk, he said when she picked up the phone. Concerning DNA, the testing process, and Victoria's communication with the girls. Ruth consented to rendezvous with him at a serene cafe close to the shelter. Upon his arrival, she was already there, a substantial envelope resting on the table. Without any introduction, she stated, "Before we discuss anything else, these are a must-see." Inside were numerous envelopes directed to Parker Montgomery at different Montgomery Enterprises locations, each one stamped with return to sender, recipient unknown, or refused. The postmarks covered almost 10 years, starting just after Victoria left. Ruth elaborated that she maintained copies. Victoria meticulously recorded every detail: correspondence, health documentation, certificates of birth. For years, she made attempts to connect with you. Parker scrutinized a worn photograph depicting a youthful Victoria in a hospital bed, cradling 4 tiny infants in her arms. On the reverse side, in Victoria's elegant script, the names of the Montgomery quadruplets: Emma, Lily, Sophie, and Zoe. 7 pounds in total. Kindly inform their father that they are eagerly anticipating his arrival. I never received any of these, Parker said, his voice echoing with emptiness. Not a single one. Ruth observed him intently. Could it be your sister's project? Victoria indicated that she managed a significant portion of your correspondence. Parker nodded, the fragments falling into place. Eleanor has been present. Guarded, particularly following the loss of our parents. Ruth inquired sharply, was it protective or controlling? Victoria was convinced that she intentionally undermined your marriage. The inquiry struck a nerve, aligning too closely with Parker's growing doubts. He stated that he needed to officially establish paternity, shifting the focus of the discussion. Not due to any uncertainty, but because I require legal standing to assist the girls and Victoria. Ruth's expression became a touch gentler. I had a feeling this discussion was on the horizon. The girls have been inquiring ever since they spotted your likeness. Are you willing to agree to the testing as their temporary guardian? Ruth examined him thoughtfully. Under one stipulation, you must convey the truth to them personally, no matter your intentions moving forward. Parker acknowledged that these children had endured enough deceit in their lives, even though the thought filled him with dread. There's an additional aspect to consider. The shelter's financial troubles have inexplicably vanished, Ruth concluded. The new proprietor of the building has settled all outstanding debts and halted the eviction, an unnamed foundation. Parker remained non-committal about his involvement. Have Victoria's letters to the girls been arriving on schedule? Upon your mention, Ruth's expression darkened. The facility permits weekly letters, though the reliability is quite inconsistent. The girls went almost a month without any news, and then suddenly, they received 3 letters all at once. Parker stated with caution that someone might be intercepting her mail. A person who wishes to prevent the reconnection between us. Realization flickered in Ruth's gaze. Is it your sister once more? I can't prove it yet, Parker admitted. But I'm getting closer. As they went their separate ways, Parker sensed the burden of responsibility pressing down more heavily upon him. The inquiry was deepening, moving past mere inquiries of parentage into a more sinister realm, a calculated plot that had torn him away from his loved ones for almost 10 years. Eleanor had consistently asserted her role as the guardian of the Montgomery legacy. However, as Parker unraveled the layers of her calculated sabotage of his marriage and her relentless meddling, he started to grasp the lengths to which his sister would go to preserve her dominance, and what actions he must take to put an end to it. Rikers Island stood tall, its gray facade casting a heavy shadow under the morning sky, a stark reminder of the depths of human despair and struggle. Parker lingered in his car, parked just outside the visitor entrance, his fingers tapping an anxious rhythm on the steering wheel. Following weeks of intricate legal strategies, Alexander Hemsworth had ultimately obtained visiting privileges for him with Victoria. The envelope on the passenger seat contained the DNA test results, confirming what he had already sensed deep down. Now, with a staggering 99.99999% probability of paternity for all 4 girls, the truth was undeniably laid bare. He requested that Ruth withhold this information from the children until he had a chance to talk to Victoria. Certain discussions required a specific sequence to unfold. Parker glanced at his reflection in the rearview mirror, struggling to identify the person staring back at him. The last couple of months had changed him both in body and spirit. Stress and revelation carved fresh lines around his eyes, and the meticulously polished corporate facade had surrendered to a more genuine, less restrained presence. He urged his reflection, "You can do this," yet the quiver in his voice revealed his doubt. The experience of entering the prison was stripped of humanity, as individuals relinquished their personal belongings, navigated through metal detectors, and endured searches, all while being observed by guards whose faces reflected a disinterested disdain. Parker went through the motions, his thoughts solely focused on the impending clash. The visiting room featured a sturdy plexiglass barrier, with conversations taking place through telephones positioned on either side. Other visitors gathered in similar cubicles, mothers with young children, elderly parents, tired spouses, all striving to maintain connections despite the institutional barriers surrounding them. Parker settled into his designated spot, his heart racing with such intensity that he felt sure the guard could hear it thumping away. After 5 minutes, a door creaked open on the other side. As Victoria stepped inside, Parker felt a sudden tightness in his chest. A decade had transformed her, yet in some way, it had not lessened her essence. More slender, indeed. The food in prison and the weight of stress had created a void. Her cheeks, Her formerly radiant chestnut hair was drawn back tightly, revealing the first hints of silver at the temples. The standard issue uniform draped over her petite figure, accentuating a vulnerability he hadn't recalled before. Yet her eyes, those striking green eyes that had once gazed at him with such affection, remained unchanged, though now they opened wide in disbelief as she realized who he was. Victoria stood still, evidently caught off guard by this unexpected guest. For a fleeting instant, Parker considered the possibility of turning on her heel and walking away. With a noticeable determination, she steadied herself and moved toward the partition. They gazed at one another across the divide, neither making a move toward the phone. A decade of silence loomed between them, laden with unvoiced accusations and untold explanations. At last, Victoria lifted her receiver. Parker imitated the gesture. 10 years, she said, her voice carrying a huskiness he hadn't recalled before. What could have led the illustrious Parker Montgomery to find himself at Rikers Island after all this time? Her tone carried a justified bitterness, yet it was measured and restrained. He responded, his words falling short of capturing the enormity of what he had witnessed. The young women, peddling blooms along Fifth Avenue. Victoria's poise faltered just a bit. So now you think they belong to you? How convenient for your sense of morality. Your letters never reached me, Victoria. Parker inclined his body, eager and attentive. None of them, excluding those from the hospital, nor the ones featuring their photographs, absolutely nothing. A flicker of doubt crossed her features. I submitted countless pieces over the years, only to have them returned or overlooked. Eleanor, Parker stated, the solitary name and clarification that appeared to strike a chord with Victoria. She confessed that she had her doubts. Your sister has been very straightforward about her feelings towards me. Parker continued, holding up the envelope. I have the DNA results. A bit. Even without needing them to recognize the reality, they carry my gaze, my emotions. Text your stubbornness, Victoria remarked, a fleeting smile barely touching her lips before it vanished. What brings you here, Parker? What is it that you desire? The inquiry was quite sensible. What was it that he desired? It felt like forgiveness was an impossible request, while understanding was barely a whisper. In the end, he expressed his willingness to assist, to seek reconciliation, if feasible. Victoria observed him through the plexiglass, her years of struggle instilling in her a cautiousness towards unexpected kindness. Parker pressed on, undeterred by her silence, stating that her attorney was diligently working to secure an early release. The punishment was overly harsh. It appears that there could have been some interference. Once more, it's Eleanor? Victoria's laugh carried a weight of seriousness. I found myself questioning the judge's unwavering resolve to set a precedent with my case. A first-time offender with 4 dependents, caught taking food instead of luxury goods. She inched nearer to the pain. Guess what? I received an offer. Admit to the charges, complete a 30-day sentence. Then, out of nowhere, the offer disappeared, and I found myself confronting the utmost challenge. Parker's doubts crystallized into undeniable truth. Eleanor has consistently guarded the Montgomery name with great care. Defensive, Victoria's gaze ignited. Is that how you define the act of ruining lives? Is it right to take children away from their father? Did you really make sure they experienced poverty while you amassed even greater riches? Her frustration, held back for an eternity, finally erupted. Parker acquiesced without protest. He conceded, you're correct. I let you all down. I embraced the truths that suited me, finding it far simpler than challenging Eleanor or the medical professionals. I never sought you out, never confirmed anything. Victoria's grip on the telephone grew firmer. Can you even begin to comprehend what these years have entailed? What do you mean? Juggling 3 jobs during pregnancy? Experiencing childbirth in solitude? Bringing up 4 kids on your own? Observing their departure while lacking what others consider basic necessities? Every question hit Parker with the force of a tangible impact. He conceded. It's beyond my comprehension. We were getting by, Victoria continued, her voice wavering just a bit. Not flourishing, but getting by. Then COVID struck and everything fell apart. Without employment, there is no security. The savings I had diligently gathered vanished within a matter of months. Parker reflected on his personal journey through the pandemic. Inconvenienced yet essentially untouched, his affluence shielding him from the financial ruin faced by others. Ruth shared a bit of it with me, he said softly. The girls have truly been exceptional throughout this entire experience. At the mention of her daughters, Victoria's demeanor became gentler. They represent the pinnacle of who I am. I have endeavored to provide them with a sense of stability, instill values, and offer love. Even amidst all the uncertainty, Parker informed her that they were always talking about her. Your resilience and dedication are being honored as they sell flowers to support your commissary account. Victoria shut her eyes for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Have you shared your identity with them? Not at this moment. Ruth wanted to inform you first so you can determine the next steps. Victoria gave a subtle nod, recognizing the gesture of politeness. What steps do you suggest we take next, Parker? One cannot just enter their lives and vanish once the burden of guilt is lifted. The challenge was just. Parker inched nearer to the glass. I desire to take on the role of their father, Victoria. Not from afar, nor merely through monetary assistance. I desire to connect with them, support their growth, and be there for every moment I've already overlooked. Victoria observed him closely, looking for any hints of deceit. What if I choose not to comply? What if I conclude that your newfound interest in fatherhood arrives too late? The inquiry filled him with dread, yet Parker responded with sincerity. I would honor your choice, maintain my financial assistance in a discreet manner, and hold on to the hope that you may change your mind in the future. His response appeared to catch her off guard. The Parker she remembered would have used his resources and connections to achieve his desires, no matter the impact on those around him. You've transformed, she noted. Parker responded with a quiet certainty. They changed me. Observing them, understanding their essence, even in their unawareness of my presence, has changed everything. Victoria fell into a thoughtful silence, pondering her next move. Eleanor will not take this lightly, she finally stated. For 10 long years, she made certain that I stayed in the shadows. Parker reassured her. I'm handling Eleanor. Yet the impending confrontation still cast a shadow. Victoria acknowledged that the girls are curious about their father. I've responded to questions with utmost honesty, ensuring no false hope is created. What have you shared with them? That you had doubts about their ownership. You achieved success yet remained somewhat aloof. That your eyes are reflected in them. Her eyes locked onto his with unwavering intensity. I never spoke ill of you, Parker. Their perception of their father is not characterized by abandonment, but rather by a profound absence. A distinction exists. The difference was significant. It created an opportunity for healing in the relationship. Thank you for that, Parker said, his voice heavy with emotion. They are worthy of more than what we offered. The guard declared that only 5 minutes were left. Victoria stood tall, her choice seemingly resolved. If you truly intend to be a lasting presence in their lives, rather than merely easing your own conscience, then absolutely you should share your thoughts with them. But Parker, her tone grew steely. Should you cause them pain or fail to uphold your promises, a third opportunity will not be granted. Got it? Parker nodded, a blend of relief and terror coursing through him. Got it? Victoria, I'm here to rescue you from this place. In the near future, as the visit drew to a close, Victoria shared one last reflection. Exercise caution around Eleanor. She has spent a decade solidifying her stance. She will not give up control without a fight. The caution resonated with Parker's personal apprehensions. As he stepped away from the prison, his determination solidified. Eleanor's deceit had robbed him of 10 precious years with his daughters, stripped Victoria of her autonomy, and nearly shattered the lives of 4 innocent souls. It was time to face the real mastermind behind his family's downfall. All that you asked for, sir. Jenkins set the folder down on Parker's desk, his demeanor unusually grave. For 3 days, his security team meticulously delved into Eleanor's activities, scrutinizing emails, phone records, and financial transactions that spanned a decade. The proof was devastating, surpassing even Parker's darkest fears. Every letter Victoria sent had been intercepted by his sister, who had set up mail redirects at various Montgomery properties. She had coerced Dr. Whitman into distorting Parker's fertility results by employing veiled threats to his professional standing. What was most unsettling were the recent exchanges with Judge Crawford, significant contributions to his re-election campaign, coupled with personal worries regarding Victoria's case. However, the ultimate revelation made Parker feel utterly unwell. Eleanor was busily concocting evidence that implied Victoria had intended to publicly assert paternity and seek financial compensation from Montgomery upon her release, a plot aimed at prolonging her prison term. "Excuse me, sir?" Jenkins paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. "There's additional information. She has everything in order. A meeting is scheduled for tomorrow with social services, proposing that the quadruplets would thrive better in a structured care environment instead of a shelter setting." Parker gazed at the document, overwhelmed by a profound silence. Eleanor was safeguarding more than just history. She was diligently striving to keep Victoria's daughters apart from both parents. Guardians. The moment for gentle approaches had passed. His sister had launched an all-out assault on his family, and Parker Montgomery was finally prepared to retaliate. Eleanor savored her champagne in Parker's penthouse, taking in the breathtaking view of Manhattan's skyline. "The Nakamura deal is on the verge of being finalized. Your absence posed a challenge, yet I found a way to cope." Parker watched his sister with a keen eye, noting her elegance, poise, and complete lack of remorse. The woman who had engineered the downfall of his family engaged in business discussions, seemingly oblivious to the weight of her actions. "A decade," Parker murmured. "For a decade you've been deceiving me." Eleanor's smile wavered just a bit. "What are you referring to?" Parker set the evidence folder down on the coffee table. "Victoria's intercepted letters, my altered medical records, your exchanges with Judge Crawford." Eleanor's calm demeanor faltered for an instant before her expression turned resolute. "All my actions were driven by a desire to safeguard you and uphold the honor of our family name. By keeping me away from my children. By confining their mother? Were those girls ever meant to be?" Eleanor's facade shattered, revealing her true self. "Victoria ensnared you with that pregnancy. She was below you, endangering all that our parents created. They are my daughters, Eleanor, my own flesh and blood. The legacy of Montgomery holds greater significance than mere sentiment," she retorted with a chill in her voice. "I have committed myself to safeguarding what you appear keen to diminish." Parker finally perceived his sister with newfound clarity. Neither safeguarding nor shielding, but rather clinging tightly. Deceptive yet cunning. Parker stated with a composed demeanor, "I've already removed you as signatory from all Montgomery accounts. Your access to the company and its resources concludes today." Eleanor's face drained of color. "That's not possible. I'm a Montgomery," Parker replied. "So are Emma, Lily, Sophie, and Zoe. Family transcends mere legacy, Eleanor. It embodies love, a concept that has always eluded your grasp." Her expression twisted in a storm of anger. "You will come to wish you had chosen differently." "No," Parker stated with unwavering confidence. "This is the first decision in a decade that I can confidently stand by. The Montgomery name holds considerable influence, Mr. Montgomery, yet what you are requesting demands exceptional actions." Alexandra Hemsworth's corner office offered a breathtaking view of Central Park, its lavishness a sharp juxtaposition to Victoria's confinement. Seeking a reevaluation of a sentence that is currently underway. Parker acknowledged the difficulty, pushing the folder containing Eleanor's messages across the sleek surface of the desk. "This evidence indicates that there was judicial misconduct swayed by my sister's involvement." As she perused the documents, a shift flickered across Alexandra's face. "This is significant. Judge Crawford seems to be facing a distinct conflict of interest." She raised her gaze. "An emergency motion can be filed today." Parker nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. "What about the guardianship papers?" "Prepared for your signature," Alexandra confirmed, although temporary custody will stay with Ruth until Victoria's release. That evening at Hope Harbor, Parker assembled the quadruplets in Ruth's office, his heart racing. How can you discern? For 9-year-olds, you are the father who has been missing from their lives all this time. Ladies, he started with caution. I haven't fully revealed my true self. For identical pairs of blue eyes, his own, looked at him with a range of emotions. Emma's doubt, Sophie's unwavering guardianship, the intrigue of Lily, Zoe's aspiration. My complete name is Parker Montgomery. He took a deep breath. I am your father. Quiet enveloped the room, shattered at last by Sophie's pointed voice. You were the one who doubted that we belonged to you. Indeed, Parker acknowledged. I committed a grave error. Mom mentioned that there are buildings with your name on them, Lily suggested. Extremely tall individuals. Zoe added quietly. She told us we have your eyes. Emma, ever the keen observer, posed the essential inquiry. What brings you to seek us out at this moment? Parker locked eyes with them unwaveringly. Seeing you felt like discovering a part of myself I never realized was absent. And I hope for the opportunity to be your father if you'll allow me. Victoria Bennett lingered at the prison gates, her eyes adjusting to the dazzling spring sunlight. After 5 months of confinement, the sensation of freedom was surreal and overwhelming. Alexandra Hemsworth stood beside her, detailing the legal miracle that had granted her early release. Yet Victoria scarcely registered the words. Her attention stayed fixed on the 4 tiny silhouettes darting in her direction. Mother. The quadruplets converged on her at once, resulting in a chaotic mix of arms and emotional hugs. Victoria knelt, drawing all 4 daughters near, breathing in their familiar scent, comforting herself with the reality of their presence. My lovely girls, she murmured, cradling their faces. I've longed for your presence dearly. It was only as Victoria rose to her feet that she became aware of Parker lingering in the background, doubt etched on his face. Their gazes locked across the children's heads, a decade's worth of anguish, miscommunication, and fresh starts distilled into one fleeting glance. We have a delightful surprise, Emma declared, easing the tension in the air. Returning to Hope Harbor isn't necessary. Father secured us a new apartment. The way her daughter effortlessly said the word dad resonated profoundly with Victoria. In merely 3 weeks, Parker had secured a spot in their lives. As the girls ventured through their new temporary abode, modest compared to Montgomery's usual grandeur yet a realm of luxury after their previous shelter life, Parker approached Victoria with a sense of caution. He explained that he wanted you to have freedom. The document is registered under your name. Victoria observed the man in front of her, shaped by his experiences, changed by the journey of fatherhood, yet undeniably still Parker. This isn't forgiveness, she murmured softly. That will require some time. I understand, he acknowledged, but it's just the start. The joyful sounds of children's laughter drifted in from the next room, a delightful reminder of their presence, connecting the echoes of the past with the promise of the future. A year had passed, and Central Park was awash with the vibrant colors of spring flowers as the Montgomery quadruplets joyfully marked their 10th birthday. A small assembly filled the picnic area close to the carousel, featuring Ruth from Hope Harbor, a few families from the shelter, the girls' new classmates, and their teachers from the private school. Victoria meticulously placed cupcakes on a checkered tablecloth, her floral-themed business flourishing at last, thanks to the discerning Park Avenue clients who appreciated her creative flair. Nearby, Parker oversaw the hanging of handmade decorations, appearing more at ease in jeans and a casual shirt than he ever did in tailored suits. Victoria noted their happiness as their daughters orchestrated a lively game of tag, the identical blue dresses and matching smiles forming a vibrant kaleidoscope as they dashed about. Parker responded with a smile. They are happy. Indeed, we all are, aren't we? The year had changed them profoundly. Following Eleanor's conviction for fraud and interference with judicial proceedings, Parker reimagined Montgomery Enterprises to focus on philanthropy that centers around family values. The Hope Harbor Foundation has begun to support transitional housing for single parents throughout New York. Victoria and Parker's relationship had transformed into something neither anticipated, Not a revival of romance, but a profound partnership grounded in shared goals and mutual respect. They synchronized their calendars, participated in school activities side by side, and slowly shaped a fresh understanding of what family means. It was time for cake, Ruth announced, calling for the quadruplets to gather around. As the girls came together around 4 identical cakes, each one mirroring their distinct personalities despite their similar appearances, Parker took hold of Victoria's hand. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for allowing me the opportunity to be their father once more." Victoria clasped his fingers softly. "Thank you for demonstrating that transformation is possible, that errors can be rectified, and that the bonds of family are worth the struggle." Together, they observed their daughters extinguishing their candles, sending forth wishes into the spring air, wishes that, unlike a decade prior, now held every possibility of becoming reality.